Christ is risen, Christos anesti. Let's talk about a subject that many people struggle with, and that is anxiety and nervousness as it relates to chanting. So, first of all, everybody gets nervous sometimes. It's very normal to get nervous. There's nothing wrong with being nervous. And this video is not about how to get rid of the nervousness. It's about how to deal with it effectively. So, a lot of the advice online about, they'll call it stage fright or whatever. Of course, it's a bit different for us chanters. We're not necessarily performing for people. So that element of performing and that performance, what do you call it? Anxiety about, stage fright, I guess they call it. We can kind of subtract that from what I'm talking about because we're not even performing when we chant, right? We are leading people in prayer, but still we can get very nervous. So a lot of the advice online kind of talks about this from a purely physical perspective, and that's reasonable because the symptoms of the anxiety and the nervousness are very physical, like they inhibit. If you're nervous, it's going to inhibit your chanting, right? But the problem is these nerves are not so much a physical issue, but they're most of the time a psychological sort of mental issue primarily. So that's why we want to deal with it not just from a physical perspective, but a mental sort of perspective. So that's what I want to talk about. So before I start, if you are a chanter and you want maybe some extra help, maybe some extra resources to go a bit deeper into learning Byzantine music, maybe you're having issues finding the right resources online, especially in English, I want to help you. If you are interested in working with me one-on-one, click the link in the description to schedule a free lesson, and I will walk you through step by step every step of the process of learning Byzantine music because I've been there. I learned everything by myself, and I know the struggle. So if you're interested in working with me one-on-one for me to walk you through it, for me to send you very personalized, customized materials to kind of help you along, just click the link and you can get started with that. So let's talk about the various causes of nervousness. And actually this applies to life in general, not just chanting, but here's the main reasons that people get nervous when they're chanting. First of all is basically a lack of confidence in your abilities and also a lack of preparation. So what does that mean? Well, if you're learning to chant, that means sometimes you're going to make mistakes. Sometimes you're not going to get things exactly right. So that issue or that sort of anxiety that's already there of what if I mess up, what if I don't do things right, because sometimes you are going to mess up when you're learning, that fear is sort of emphasized when you're up there chanting in front of all these people. You get this thought of what if I mess up, what if I make a mistake, and that's normal. That's part of the process, and really the solution is through time, through a lot of effort and consistency and work, you need to become as good, as skilled as you possibly can be, so that ideally you can have confidence and you can rely on your voice and your ability to chant, to read the notation, to get the right notes, all that stuff, so that you can be confident that even on a bad day, you can still do well. And the truth is there's no shortcut to this. You have to be committed, you have to work on it, and once you get there to the point where you're confident in your abilities, this sort of aspect of the anxiety and nerves is going to greatly decrease. You're not going to be as nervous when you know that when you go up there to chant, you know what you're doing. You have these skills very much established to the point where you know you're probably not going to mess up in a big way, in a big sort of embarrassing way, because you know what you're doing. And how does this apply to beginners? Well, just prepare as much as possible. Prepare for the service beforehand. Prepare and do the things you need to do so you are prepared for the service, because a lot of times the anxiety and the nerves is just, a lot of it can be a lack of preparation, where you didn't do the necessary work before the service, so now you're nervous. So just do what you need to do to be prepared. Put in that effort and that work, and eventually it's gonna pay off. Both short term, right before the service, you do the necessary preparation, and in the long term, you're gonna just get these skills really deeply rooted and established within yourself. And I'll talk about this more in a minute as far as preparing and stuff. So yeah, what I was going to say is actually, I'll talk about it now. Basically, when I say prepare for the service, you want to prepare, the way I like to say it is you want to prepare logically and not emotionally. So what does that mean? If you know, as a chanter, you have to do certain things. Let's say before a service, you should go to bed early. You should get enough sleep. You should ideally be on a good sleeping schedule, right? Because our services are in the morning. You don't want to be going to bed really, really late every night, and then all of a sudden the night before church you have to go to bed early. It's gonna kind of throw off your schedule. You want to have a good sleeping schedule. You want to have a healthy diet, because if you watch my video on acid reflux, if you get acid reflux, and of course you don't want to get to the point where you will develop acid reflux, but a harmful diet, especially if it's high in alcohol and a bunch of junk food and stuff, this can affect your voice. It can cause basically acid reflux, which can travel up to the vocal cords and cause issues for your voice, even minor issues. You don't want that. So when I say prepare logically, this means do the things you know you need to do. Prepare, look over the music, look over the services, but also be outcome independent. What does that mean? That means that you take the pressure off of yourself to need to do a good job. In other words, a lot of people feel like they need to perform a certain way, they need to do a really good job. And a lot of times you'll think, well, I went to all this work, I did all this preparation, I really need to sound good, I really need to do a good job. If you stop being outcome dependent, that means that you're just going to enjoy the moment. You're going to enjoy chanting. You're going to enjoy being in church. And if you do a good job, that's good. If you don't, it's okay. You're going to learn from it. You don't need to have a certain outcome. So this is going to take the pressure off of you to, have to sound a certain way. And you just prepare. Logically, you do the things you need to do to prepare, and that's it. And going off of that a little bit, another reason that people become anxious is basically what I would call an over pedestalizing of what you're doing. So I don't know if I'm the only one who kind of experienced this, but when I was first learning to chant, I would basically listen to recordings of very talented chanters, and I really just loved listening to them. And I loved listening to these recordings, and I wanted to be like them. I wanted to sound like them. But of course, realistically, as a beginner, you can't sound like people who have been chanting for years. So what I would do is I would just pedestalize a lot of this chanting. I would think that, I would hold myself to a certain standard. I need to sound a certain way. I need to sound like this guy over here that I was listening to or whatever. And what that does is that puts pressure on you. So then when you go up there, you have this certain idealized version of what you should be doing. And when you don't live up to that because you're a beginner, right, then it puts pressure on you, and it ends up making you really nervous because you feel like you're supposed to, sound a certain way. So how do you deal with this? It may sound kind of silly, and maybe this just applies to me, maybe it doesn't. Not everyone thinks this way, but I would say have other things going on in your life that you're occupied with mentally, other things that you're interested in. Don't just be interested in chanting. Don't put all your focus on chanting. And I know that sounds weird. It's like, why are you saying this? But the reason I'm saying this is because if you really, again, a lot of this applies to certain types of people. There are a lot of people that aren't going to relate to this. I'm talking about, this applies more to the sort of, I guess, overthinking type of people that are more prone to like anxiety and overthinking, really wanting to do a good job or whatever. If you put all your focus on a certain thing, in this case, being a really good chanter and chanting this specific hymn really, really well, you're going to put pressure on yourself. And when you go up there, you're gonna get nervous. So my advice is have other things outside of chanting that you are focused on, so that when you go up there to chant, you're not just, you don't have all this pressure on yourself. Another important thing is to just basically have exposure to going up there and chanting in front of all those people. You're going to be nervous. You're not going to want to do it. It might be uncomfortable. But if you keep doing it, you keep forcing yourself to do it, even if you make mistakes, eventually, just through the exposure of doing it over and over again, you're going to become less and less nervous. You're going to say, oh, this isn't as scary as I thought. This isn't a big deal as I thought, right? And for me personally, I would have certain types of hymns that I really loved listening to, and I wanted to chant those hymns a certain way. I wanted to sound a certain way when I chanted. And it really helps to basically have the exposure of going up there and getting that experience and exposure to the point where you say, okay, this isn't as big of a deal as I thought, right? It's okay if I mess up. It's okay if I don't live up to this specific standard, right? And eventually you'll realize, like, it's not as difficult as you think to chant some of this stuff and to do a really good job, because a lot of Byzantine hymns are very, very elaborate, very exquisite, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of it is intimidating, but like I said, after enough exposure, you realize you can do it. It's doable, it's within your power, and it's not as scary as you might think. Along the same lines, give yourself permission to make mistakes. Give yourself permission to mess up. Don't put all this pressure that you can't make a mistake, because ironically what's going to happen, you're going to make more mistakes a lot of the times, especially the overthinking, anxious types of people. Give yourself permission to mess up, and you will mess up less. And just to, if you need something to sort of make you feel better, just be aware, because trust me, I've seen it. Most chanters, I don't mean this in a rude way, but most chanters in the United States really don't know that much what they're doing. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying most chanters in the United States go years and years making the same mistakes and doing the same things wrong. So you going up there and making a mistake, give yourself permission. You don't need to sound like the fathers on Mount Athos or the chanters in the Patriarchate of Constantinople, because in the United States, everyone makes mistakes. You can give yourself permission to make mistakes as well. And also keep in mind, when you are learning a new thing, when everyone's learning something new, everyone goes through that period of messing up, failing, doing things wrong, kind of embarrassing themselves. It's inevitable. You're not the only one who goes through that. Everyone goes through it. That's how you become really good. You give yourself permission to mess up. So my thinking is, might as well go through that period now and just get it over with. So that's an interesting way to think about it. Nobody is immune to this sort of process. And like I said, there are certain types of people, and this is kind of who I'm talking to, because this is kind of how I am. There are certain people who are more prone to being nervous with this type of thing. And these are people who are just, in general, they have a personality that's more prone to overthinking and anxiety and that type of thing. And you're going to get nervous. It's going to affect you, right? And it's okay. Like, give yourself permission to be nervous. It's okay to be nervous. But just remember, even if you have this personality type that you easily get anxious, if you do everything I'm saying in this video, you're going to be okay. You're not going to have this crippling anxiety that keeps you from chanting. Again, make sure you just get that exposure to going up there, allowing yourself to mess up, and use that sort of overthinking energy to your advantage. Like I said, if you want to become good at chanting, if you have this personality type, you're going to overthink a lot, and it's going to work against you. So take some of that energy, and just put it into something else. Maybe go and learn a sport. Maybe go learn, a different skill, gardening or something. I don't know. So that you don't put all this pressure on yourself to be a really good chanter. I don't know if it's only me who thinks this way, but those of you who think in a similar way, that's why I'm making this video. So another cause of anxiety that I basically already talked about is just the novelty of going up there. And I think everybody's experiences this. The novelty of going up there and chanting in front of all these people, right? Maybe you're not used to doing that. Maybe you're not used to going and singing in front of a bunch of people. And just that experience in and of itself makes you nervous. So that's completely normal. And like I said, the solution is do it as much as possible. Go on Sundays. Go on not only Sundays, go on the weekday services if you can. Go to the small services where there's not very many people there. Go to maybe smaller parishes and go to the small, let's say there's a paraklesis service, and every opportunity you get to chant, use that opportunity, and you're going to realize it's not that scary. It's not that big of a deal. Here is another cause of anxiety that you probably have not thought about, but a lot of people deal with this, and that is the leadership around you, around in your parish, and the other chanters around you, and sometimes even the parishioners in the parish in general. So this is tricky. And I've lived through it. I've been through it, and it's tricky. Here's the thing. If the leadership around you is very, I guess you could say, toxic, the term many people like to use, this is going to have an effect on you. It's literally going to have an effect. Again, the more overthinking type of person you are, it's going to affect you more. But if the leadership around you is not very Christ-like, it's literally going to have an effect on your nervous system, and it's going to have an effect on your chanting. If the lead chanter is controlling and dominating and a difficult person to deal with in general, I hate to say this, but it's going to affect your chanting. If the priest is difficult, if the priest tries to micromanage you, right? I don't know what it is with some people, how it is with other people, but for me, I can't stand people to micromanage me. It's the number one thing. I just hate it. So if the priest is difficult, if the parishioners, you feel like they're judging you, they don't like the way you chant, this is going to make you nervous. This is going to put almost like as if someone's, putting their hand around your voice and squeezing it, strangling it, however you want to think of it. It's suffocating you. This is a problem. And if you're the type of person that can tune it out, that can ignore it, good for you. That's great. But if you're not that type of person, I know this can be difficult. And what can you do about this? If you can leave that parish, then leave that parish. If you're a good chanter, if you're have a good heart, and you have good intentions, and you want to do the best you can, and the people around you in your parish are giving you a hard time, and they're making your life more difficult, then sometimes the best thing you can do is leave. Trust me. Like I said, I've been there before. Because if your heart is in the right place, if you have the right intentions, you are going to find another parish where you're appreciated. Trust me, you are going to find a community where you are appreciated. So if you can leave. And along the same lines, if it's just, if there's a specific person that kind of makes you uncomfortable, kind of makes you nervous, and maybe they're not always there, maybe there's a lot of times when they're not there, maybe you can avoid them, and you can keep chanting at that parish, then do that. But if something is disturbing your peace, then I have to be honest with you, it's difficult to stay there, right? And if you can tune it out, good. But if not, it's understandable if you need to leave and go somewhere else where you are appreciated. And the last cause of just nerves and anxiety is just the pressure in general. Orthodox services are not Protestant services, right? In many ways, Orthodox services are complex. Those of you who chanted during Holy Week know that Orthodox services are more than, Pastor Bob or whatever giving a sermon. It's quite a bit, it can be intimidating at times. There's so much that goes into our services. There's so much with Holy Week and the structure of the services and the type of hymns that are chanted and the range of these hymns and the complexity. And then you add into that, let's say, a hierarchical service where the bishop is there, and there's even more that you have to deal with, and there's a lot of pressure. So it's normal to be a bit nervous in regards to that pressure. So what can you do? Prepare ahead of time. Always prepare. Look through the services. Sometimes you might need to look through 20 times. Look through the services as many times as possible so you are prepared and you're not thrown off by anything, right? So then when it's time for the service, like you guys have, I assume, you've prepared for a math test or whatever. It's kind of the same thing. So, like I said, this is very much a mental issue predominantly. But there are also things you can do physically to kind of mitigate the nerves when you're up there, when you're chanting. The first and most important thing that you can do is to breathe. Breathe deeply and breathe slowly. And if you want to calm down your nervous system, I think I made a video on this because it also strengthens your breath, but it can also reduce your anxiety. Practice taking slow breaths and inhaling, let's say 4 seconds of inhaling, and then holding that breath for 4 seconds, and slowly exhaling it for 4 seconds, and then holding it empty, like holding your breath. Don't take any air in, just hold it for 4 seconds. Maybe you could do 5 seconds, 6, whatever you're comfortable with. And then this is going to calm down your nervous system, your heart rate. If you find yourself getting anxious, this is going to help you. And of course, this goes without saying, you want to have a healthy diet, get the right vitamins and all that. You want to sleep well, have a good sleep schedule. I don't actually worry about sleeping and getting enough sleep the night before a service, because it's actually going to backfire, right? Just focus on getting 8 hours, going to bed early, getting 8 hours of rest, right? 8.5 hours ideally. And don't overdo caffeine. That's gonna, again, make things worse as far as anxiety is concerned. And don't forget your spiritual life. Don't forget to pray, right? Don't forget to read spiritual books and basically live a spiritual life, because this is going to reduce your anxiety. And of course, as an Orthodox Christian, as a chanter, our spiritual life is the most important thing. So it's going to balance out your life in general. Like I said, you want to take the right vitamins. You want to make sure you have the right diet. Don't do things that are going to throw off your system, alcohol and junk food and stuff. It does affect a lot of things. It's going to affect your adrenal glands and your breathing and your what do you call it? Your immune system, not immune system. What do you call it? Nervous system. You're the part of your nervous system that is, we have the fight or flight or something, and then the sort of rest and digest part, which is like parasympathetic nervous system. You want all of this to be basically regulated. You want to have the right diet, and 2 really important nutrients are magnesium and B vitamins. These are very important, and they help with anxiety in general. A few other tips. If you're nervous, if you're going to chant and you're nervous, I always say take a big breath, take a deep breath. But if you're really nervous and you try to take a deep breath, and because of the nervousness, that breath ends up being very shallow, you don't get it deep enough as you need to, and you don't manage that breath, it can actually work against you, right? A deep breath is good if you can take it deep into your body. But if you're going to take it, if it ends up being shallow and it ends up kind of coming up here and choking you, then it's almost better not to breathe at all, ironically, because you don't want breath that's actually causing tension. You want to breathe deeply only if it goes deep into your lower back, very deep in your body, instead of up here. You don't want to feel it up here kind of like coming up and choking you. And you want to be able to manage that breath. You want to be able to use only the amount of breath necessary for it to produce your sound. And sometimes when you're nervous, that's difficult. So if you're in doubt, maybe don't take a deep breath at all. Just take a slow breath with enough air to chant. And finally, these are just some tips that I have learned over time. When you chant, when you are nervous, you tend to get a dry mouth. You tend to swallow your saliva a lot, even just a tiny bit of nerves. You tend to do a lot of swallowing of your saliva. And a great way to sort of deal with this is cough drops. Just have a cough drop in your mouth, maybe not while you're chanting, but in between. This kind of helps to produce more saliva, to moisten your mouth and whatever. Also, people say if you bite your tongue, it produces more saliva. You could try that. So, did this help you? Was this helpful? Did you implement it, and was it helpful? Comment below your thoughts. And as always, if there's somebody who you think would benefit from this, please share it with them. God bless you.